Beyond the Veil background information. The Peri. I am a creature known as a Peri, the child of an angel and a fallen angel. My duty is to aid humans into reaching heaven, so that someday I may also be permitted to go to heaven. Unfortunately, my kind are all at war with our darker siblings, the Jinn, who work to try and prevent humans the chance to go to heaven at all, and corrupt the people we try to help. Does this make any sense to you? So, a quote from the Luther in Fragrance of Paradise. So, one day, I was going through Brenda Rosen's Mythical Creature Bible, looking for some interesting being to write a short story about for Patreon. I found a few potential ideas and then offered them up to my sister Lucia to decide which one she'd like to hear about. Lucia is a fan of fairies, and so she pointed out the Peri is more interesting. So I sat down and had a look into it. The Peri, it seemed, was a Persian version of a fairy, related to the Djinn, that fed off the nectar of flowers and did its best to aid humans. Apparently the Djinn did not like it and tried to catch them in cages because they are kind of polar opposites. Then I looked into it some more online, searched around sources that discuss Persian mythology, and found myself fascinated by the more religious, I suppose, element of the Peri. It seems that the Peri is a being desperate to get into heaven, but cannot, so they sit by the gates and weep until a kindly human either leads them in or they choose to gain atonement by aiding humans. At first they were a slightly mischievous fairy, more akin to the Western fairies like the Shi that we often think of when we think fairies. But then, under Islamic influence, their countering of the Jinn made them far more benevolent. In one piece I read, it stated that the Peri was gaining atonement for being the children of fallen angels, just like their siblings the Jinn, but unlike them chose to be benevolent. But in others it stated that they were created by God as a good spirit to rival the bad spirit which he created with the Jinn. Either way, their lives are interwoven with the Djinn. In Persian literature, I'm probably going to be pronouncing things wrong, the epic poem by Ferdowsi, Shanema, once again apologies on my bad pronunciation, a divine being named Sarush takes the form of a Peri to warn the first man, Kayamaz, and his son about the threat of Ahriman, and the Peris even form part of the army to fight against these demonic forces. It is also from Persian literature that the persecution of the Peris by other lesser evils, called the Divs, catch them in iron cages, giving a link to Western fairies and their inability to deal with iron. As the stories began being pulled into Western culture, the Peri took on more curious roles, from the ballet La Peri by Paul Dukas. In this, the Peri appears as the guardian of a lotus flower that grants immortal life. The imagery of the Peri's feminine beauty is the subject of many stories to attract the West, especially with folklore stating that they sometimes sneak off young men to join their parties. There are even tales of marrying them, though it is believed that the marriage won't last due to humans being less patient and, in Islamic stories, Bilqis, bad pronunciation, the Queen of Sheba, is thought to be the daughter of one of these parents. These unhappy marriages are similar perhaps, or at least get likened to other stories of supernatural partners that can never be content with their human companion, and this is something seen with the Peri being mingled into Western stories. Western imagination likened the Peri to the Fae, though has often meant that the Peri Western imagination linking the Peri to the Fae, though, has often meant that the Peri have been compared to the Swan Maidens, with the idea that taking away their wings by man may trap them into being their wives until the day they get their wings back and fly away. Also, the mermaid stories are quite similar to in the Selkies. This seems, though, a more negative idea of the Peri, and even the poem of Paradise and the Peri by Thomas More seems a little less flattering, as we see a Peri barter her way into heaven by giving an angel three gifts that God treasures most: blood from a soldier who tried to kill someone, the sigh of a lover who forsook exile and presumed safety to die of plague alongside her lover, and the tear of an evil man who repented when he saw a child praying in the church. All of those seem a little harsh, to be fair, and don't tend to fit the other narratives of the Peri aiding man to earn its place. So as you can see, there's not really too much to say about the Peri that's easy to find, but it is certainly a fascinating being, and so I thought to use it with a connection to the angels in my own stories, and name the story Fragrance of Paradise due to the flowery link and to link to heaven. So let's talk about Peris in my universe. Also, the sounds you've been hearing, the clattering, the scratching, and the occasional meows are because my cat Cleo has decided to join him. What side are they on? The good side. Who are they created by? The daughters of angels and rebel angels, born just before their fallen angel mothers landed in hell, with their faces looking up to where their fathers must be. Created for? Not for any particular reason. When the rebel angels chose gender, and fornicated with others. They disobeyed God, and the Peri were the daughters born from it, along with the Mastema and the Djinn as a visual representation of going against the Almighty. Created when? During the literal fall. Physical description. Beautiful and elegant women, with often dark hair, olive skin, beautiful glittering eyes, a scent of jasmine or lotus flowers around them, and beautiful but fragile wings upon their backs, like those on insects like beetles, appearing clear but in light become painted with a myriad of colours. Abilities. Their duty is to do something to aid humans in staying on the righteous path, and protect them from any kind of evil. There are few of them around, so they often attach themselves to one specific human for life as a guardian spirit, but the human is usually a very benevolent one to begin with, and as they can see and fight with the Djinn with powers granted by flowers and protective spells, they can warn a human that an enemy is beside them. They can give information and can only be seen by those they want to see them, changing size to travel beside them properly and hiding their wings from enemies or those that might not be able to comprehend their decision to help out. Most known for their desire to be benevolent in order to get into heaven. Weaknesses. They are weak to a kind of demonic insect that sends them into sleep, and being trapped in cages this way. Their wings are also very delicate, but only an angel, demon, or human is able to remove them. Once removed, they become mortal. Number. There's only around 200 left on Earth, as many have already entered heaven, or been killed and re-entered the soul cycle. Well-known beings. Samara, the first to enter heaven. Characters in stories. Nilufer, female protagonist of Fragrance of Paradise, is the Peri daughter of the demon Andrea Fist. Trapped in a cage, she's saved by an unlikely hero she's determined to help. Final comments. The Peri are an interesting being, and I like them because where the Fae and Fairies are often just assumed a Western thing, and thereby white, the Peri is Middle Eastern and far more attached to my demonology, which is more a feel for the Beyond the Veil series than folklore and myth. If you search Peri or Persian Fairy, and you see some of the images of them, they really do look amazing. Thank you for listening.